Hello, you Germans.
Pump up the jam, pump it up while your feet are stumping. And the jam is pumping. Look ahead, the crowd is jumping.
And welcome to Pump Up the Jam, the unofficial podcast of Maldon and Tiptree. I'm Lee Witney, and joining us as always this week is the answers to the question, what would have happened if Teddy Sheringham and Alan Shearer both enjoyed a kebab? Richard Buckby and Alan Taylor. How are you, gents?
I'm good, Lee. How are you, mate?
Not bad, not bad.
That was very nice of you, Lee. Only the one kebab, though, yeah?
just the one, just like Luke Littler.
Haha, lad.
That's not a sharing kebab either.
That's a
but no,
family
Lee.
one.
But Lee, yeah, I'm very excited about this episode. I won't give too much away, but yeah, it will hopefully be a good cracker.
Your contact book has come up trumps, isn't it?
It has, yeah. I didn't have to dig that deep because it's someone quite fresh in our memories. Although it will be 5 years in October, or November, but perhaps I shouldn't give too much away.
What's happened in those last 5 years?
COVID.
Yeah, unfortunately. We'll go on to that later.
Shall we get him in then, gents?
Go for it.
Bring him in.
Way through for him, and there's going to be space at the other end. Here goes Slew. Look how far he's got already. Jorome Slew. He couldn't go all the way, could he? Oh, incredible! A length of the field second for Maldon and Tiptree, and they're on course for the second round. A stunning goal to fuel a stunning story unfolding in East London.
Right, joining us this week, ladies and gentlemen, this man needs no introduction, but we'll give him one anyway. Rumour is Maradona used to have pictures of him on his bedroom wall, and he's responsible for more limbs in Maldon than St Peter's Hospital. It is the one and only Jorome Slew. Jerome, thank you so much for joining us.
I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, so Jerome, thanks for giving up your time, as we said. And we're going to go right back to the start of your career, if that's okay, just before we dive into all things Jammers. So for those that perhaps don't know, you started your career at Sheffield United. What was that environment like, being at such a big club at quite a young age?
It's funny, actually. So I actually started at, it's like the United's development, so it was called Junior Blades. So it's like just the local Sunday League team. And I started there, and we went, I think I started there when I was 5. I left there when I was 8 to join United. We went 3 years, I think it was, unbeaten. So we had a great team. And then obviously I had my older brother who joined Sheffield United. And I remember the scout came up to my mum one time and he asked about me. And obviously I was none the wiser. And my mum was, obviously she had my brother. So she was like, yeah, fine, cool, whatever. And my brother said to me, he said, I'm just going to let you know it's hard. And obviously me being me, I was, 8 years old. I used to just run through everyone. I was like, how hard could it be? And I remember the warm-up in itself was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. I think I was tired. I think I was tired just by the warm-up. We'd done like 4 laps of the pitch. But yeah, once I joined, it was good, to be honest. We had a good age group, and everyone got on. I had a good friend, Danny, who I'm still talking to now. Yeah, it was really good. We got good training, good facilities. You would see some of the first team players if you was lucky. But obviously you're just a kid, aren't you? So you just think, you just play football as usual.
Yeah, you just touched on your brother there, mate. Obviously, you've got quite a few footballing connections in your family. Was that a big influence on you growing up just to make it into football?
At one point, I think when I first started, I just wanted to play football. Like me and my brother and all the kids in the neighbourhood, we would all play outside. It was always outside my house, actually. It was funny. We had the biggest piece of grass outside of our garden. So all the kids would come, we would all play football there. My mum would end up bringing everyone drinks out. So for me, it was I just liked to play football. I was always doing it with my older brother. I was always doing it with the other kids. I think it was probably maybe when I got to... Well, actually, it was when I got to about 13. My brother had just broken into Sheffield United first team. And I think from that point, I'd always wanted to be a footballer. But I think from that point, I was like, oh my God, someone so close to me has done it. I think that's when I really wanted to push on. That's when I started playing with the older age groups. So it did have an influence on me 100%. But it was always in there. I think it just probably boosted that little bit of motivation to go further and do it.
You say your brother broke through into the first team at United. Did that help you in any way at all? Did it kind of sort of help you realise what you needed to get to and what you the level and the pitfalls almost?
Yeah, so I obviously used to train with my brother in the summer, and he's always been fit. So I remember training with him, and he was always super fit. And I thought, okay, this is the level I need to get to. And I seen it, so I used to go to games, and you'd hear people talking about Jorome Slew, and you'd hear them chanting his name, and I was like, bloody hell, I want this. Can I swear? Can I swear on here or?
Yeah, you can.
Oh, yeah, go.
I was like, obviously, I'd go to games at 13 years. I was like, fucking hell, my brother's on the pitch. Like, you see his name come up, and it's like, wow. But I kind of look back at it sometimes, and knowing what I know now, sometimes I think, did it actually give me too much of an ego boost, and did I get too carried away? So I think at the same time my brother broke into the first team, I was 13 years old, or 12 actually, and I got offered a scholarship. And only me and maybe two others did. And they was like, oh, bloody hell, they must like me. In my head, I was like, right, that's it. I've made it to a footballer. Obviously, that's not how it works. But I think having an older brother, it gives you that incentive of, right, someone so close to me has done it. He's had the same upbringing as me. He's living in the same house as me. If he can do it, I can do it. So it was definitely a bit of it's just someone to look up to. He's always been someone I can look up to in terms of football and life. So it helped me in that sense, but maybe sometimes I think that I get a little bit carried away.
Yeah, with that, obviously probably helped you with your transition into like playing, as you said, on the streets with your friends, then going into almost like professional level of football. Did that really help you with moving into training and that, seeing what your brother's done?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, my brother's always been there. I said to him one time, oh, I scored this amount of goals in training. He was like, all right, score more. And he would always, he's just that sort of person. So we would always talk
Easily
about.
pleased.
Yeah, he was pleased, but he was kind of like, do more. That's how he is. And he would always talk to me, like he would ring me after training, after a game. How'd you get on? How's training going? So he's always give me that little bit of motivation and someone to speak to, but a little bit of comfort of, okay, it's fine, go again.
Who just out of curiosity, who was in charge when he broke through? Who was the gaffer there?
First team gaffer, right? So I might get this confused. I think it was Gary Speed.
Oh, okay,
I think Gary Speed was in charge, and then so I think he put Jordan on as a sub and made his first debut, and I think Derek Adams gave him his first start. It might be the other way around, but I'm not too sure. But I know he's got big respect for both managers. So it was one of those two.
Yeah. So Jerome, obviously, we are going to touch on it later, but your brother played against Maldon, didn't he? Not that long after you left.
Yeah, he did.
For Morecambe, although we don't have to talk about that day too much. But throwing your career forward slightly, I think you had quite a few loan spells. You probably, I think it's fair to say, sort of were a little bit unsettled for a time. But then, remarkably, you ended up at a small place called Maldon somehow, which you may or may not have ever heard of prior to joining. But just how did that move come about? And obviously, during your time at the club, you still are the club's leading ever goal, the leading goal scorer for the club.
Oh, am I? I'm about to come back and top that goal tally.
Please do.
Oh, there we go.
I'm sure you have them stats at hand, Rich.
So that came about. I had met an agent. So actually, an agent. No. So how it works is I have a cousin who's always been really big in sports, working in sports. She works for the NBA now, I think, or she might have moved on. And she lived in London, and just so happened she knew this football agent called Jonathan. So he came to speak to Jordan. And it's funny because if you asked him now, he always talks about this story of when he first came to Sheffield, and he was speaking to Jordan, and I think I was only 16, maybe younger. And he said I think I had my top off doing press ups and sit ups downstairs, just working out. So he ended up messaging my cousin to get in touch with me about my career, and he said, obviously this was after I'd left Sheffield United, 19 I think I was. And he just spoke to me and said, look, there's a really good opportunity for you to come down to London and do something. So he brought me down. I went to Wealdstone FC. Obviously, like you said, I had a few loan spells there. And then at 22, no, I was 21, I think I was, and I ended up at the Jammers. He just basically said, I came home. I was a bit fed up with Wealdstone, so I'd moved back to Sheffield. I was signed at a National League North team, and I wasn't happy. I wasn't enjoying it. And he basically said to me, look, there's a manager called Wayne Brown. He's at this club called Maldon, and he's a coach at Colchester. There's a chance for you to train full-time at Colchester, play with Maldon, and you just rack up some goals. And I remember he told me, and I think I was that unhappy one night after training, I said, yeah, get it done. And I think within 2 days I was in London, well, in Essex.
So just before we move on, Jorome, what was your first impression of Wayne, and what was it like to work alongside him?
First time I met him, very tall man. I remember looking up at him thinking, fucking hell. But you know what? The first day I met him, he greeted me very well, and then ever since then, he treated me very well. And one thing I got with Wayne, obviously, given his background in football, he was always very professional. There was never really favouritism. If you worked hard, you had your place. And I think that's one thing I always respected with Wayne. No matter, even if I was scoring so many X amount of goals, I wasn't working hard, he wouldn't play me. And that was kind of the chemistry in the whole team. Everyone knew they had to work hard, and that's probably why we were so successful. And I say to this day, Wayne is the manager I respect the most. He's probably the one manager I would go anywhere with Wayne. Even to this day, 4 or 5 years later, I've never had a manager that's made me enjoy football the way he has.
Yeah, that really does come across. A lot of people that we speak to, they speak really highly of Wayne. I know it's an ongoing joke here. Lee's slightly scared of him.
I was going to say, is he as terrifying as I make him out to be, Jorome?
Okay, you know what? It's funny. He can be. When he gets, he rarely gets mad.
I knew it.
And he rarely shouts, but he's got this look in his eye.
Yes.
And it looks like he's got a fake eye, and it's a little bit scary. So he can be an intimidating man, but then again, he's also a very nice man. So once you know him and you understand how he operates and his boundaries, that sort of stuff goes out the window, and you know he's not like that.
You mentioned the sort of the connection that the team had and the chemistry. Obviously, the first season you were there, I think, was the season we lost in the playoff final to Haybridge.
Haybridge, yeah.
And then the season after that was the season of the cup run. And just talk to us about the connection that you, Danny, and Charlie had as a three, because I remember in the autumn of that season, I would just turn up to the game, and it would just be a question of how many are we going to win by today, and who's getting the hat trick this week, Jorome, Charlie, or Danny?
It was literally that, and I think the best thing that we all three of us had, I don't really think there was competition between us. As much as it sounds so cliche to say that, you're always thinking football, there's competition everywhere. I genuinely believe between the three of us, there just wasn't. Like, Danny would score, but in my head I was like, well, I'm going to score. And Danny would help me score, and vice versa. Same with Charlie. And we had this thing of, obviously, all three of us played up top, on the left, down the middle, and down the right. And it was just this flexibility and understanding of, if I went down the middle, one of them would go on the right. If Danny wanted to go down the middle, we'll just keep swapping over. And I think that's what made it so good for us. We was never static. We was always chopping and changing. We were so flexible. And Wayne gave us that bit of freedom to just kind of go whichever position we wanted to. So that's why I think we were so successful in scoring goals, because you never knew which person you was going to come up against in terms of me, Danny, and Charlie. And it worked so well for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think you three nearly bankrupted the club in match balls that season.
But you know what's funny? You say that, but I haven't got one.
Have you not?
I haven't got one ball from Maldon. Oh, and actually, I'm gonna have to message Ed. I know he's not there anymore, but I need to speak to Ed and get one. I need a few.
Yeah, we'll have to get that sorted. We'll steal some on Saturday for you, mate.
Yes, please. I need some.
Well, obviously talking about that season, we went on an unbelievable cup run, which we got to Lane Orient, and you scored that goal. It is considered that goal. What was your leading up to that game? Did you guys have a belief that you could win, or did you just go there, turn up, and just thought we could do a number here?
Oof, this is a good question. I think the morale in the team that the day before, obviously we all stayed in London that night, and everyone was excited for the game. I think everyone's hopes were actually we could do something, because I remember saying to last day when we did the draw, I said I hope we get like a National League South team, and he said, I remember he said it in his words, "Fuck that, let's get a league team." and then obviously look what happened. We got Leyton Orient. And I remember when we all got there and we walked onto the pitch, I feel like I don't think one person was really nervous. No one was really shy. No one was kind of not the self. We all went on there, had a laugh. And I feel like it was one of those days where we had every chance of doing what we did. I thought to myself, I'm scoring today. This is my chance. And obviously I did. But it was a really good day where everyone came there ready to put in a performance. Like, we had all the momentum leading up to it, so why wouldn't we?
Yeah, and Jerome, just before I ask you about that goal, I can't help move on for the fact you just mentioned last day. What kind of a character was he like? One, to play with, and two, in the dressing room? Because
oh god, listen, if I showed you some of the videos I've got of that guy, I don't know what you say about it. He's last day again. You know what? I think back then I didn't realise it, but knowing what I know now and I look at it, last day was probably one person who probably held that team together. And I don't mean on the pitch, I mean off it. He is the person everyone would speak to. If the kind of the vibe in the dressing room wasn't good, you know, you can trust last day to put on some music and start dancing. And that was just how he was. He was always this very bubbly character. He was very serious at times, like there was no messing about. He trained with his heart on his sleeve, but he brought that charisma to the changing room. And he's the funniest, biggest idiot I've ever met in my life. And still to this day, I've got love for him. I ain't spoke to him for a while, but I've still got love for that man.
Yeah, he's certainly a character. And Jerome, so just to touch on that goal, I think it's been watched by over 1 million people on Twitter. It's been likened to Thierry Henry's goal against Tottenham when he ran from his own half.
It's better than that.
Hey, you better tag Thierry Henry in this, because that man's my hero.
What was going through your head when you picked up that ball? And is that probably the greatest ever assist from last day?
Last day can't take that assist. He tried doing that in the change room, and everyone said you can't class it as an assist. It's too long gone. There was too many touches. There was too many touches between it. He's going to hate that, by the way, if he sees this. You know what's funny? I remember speaking to someone else, and you probably won't be able to tell, but when I got the ball, I had cramp in my calf. And I just thought, right, just run. And for God knows what reason, the cramp went, and I thought, actually, I'm good here. I'm running. I feel good. And obviously, I think I'd done an interview before with Danny, and I remember saying I couldn't see anyone close to me. And I thought, right, hold on a minute. I haven't scored yet. I've got the ball, and it's, 20 minutes left. Just run. I started running. And as I'm looking, I'm getting closer and closer, and I can see them backing off. And I think this is where my strengths come into play. So obviously, I just kept running, managed to get through. And I think it's funny because I remember saying to my agent, when I hit the ball, I kind of knew it was going in. And it sounds like it's one of those things that strikers say, yeah, I knew it was going to go in. Like, generally speaking, I hit it and I thought, I've scored. I don't even think it was a clean hit. But in my head, with the confidence I had then, I just knew it was going in. And I think even before it hit the net, I kind of started running towards the fans to get him ready.
I think, if I'm remembering it rightly, I think you had either Charlie or Danny out to your right. And I remember standing there sort of behind the goal, just thinking, pass it. Whoever it is open. Pass it. Oh, good finish.
Good finish, cheers.
Probably slightly undersells it just a bit.
Yeah, well, you know what? Yeah, like I've watched the video just a few times, not too many. But I remember that Danny was right on the far side, and I was looking. I think there was no chance I was getting that ball to him. So I thought, yeah, just run. But actually, it's funny because before I hit the ball, I could have actually passed to him. But I don't think when I did it, I even saw him. I think I just had my beams on. What do you call those things that horses wear? Blinkers.
Blinkers, yeah.
Yeah,
Blinkers, yeah.
I had the blinkers on. I thought as soon as I got to the edge of the box, I was hitting it. But yeah, I don't know. God knows where Charlie was. Charlie might have been tired.
And is it right that, because obviously Danny got sent off in that game, didn't he? Because he went down in the box with cramp.
Yeah.
And he got booked in the celebrations in the aftermath. And I was told that because you were on a yellow, the referee didn't want to give you a second yellow for celebrating with the fans. So Danny took the hit. So does he get an assist from that point of view?
Let me not talk too much on that one. You know what? Yeah, whoever's told you that, you're right. So the ref once I had scored, and to be fair to myself, I didn't actually jump into the crowd. Heidi pushed me in. So I'll be honest. If you look at it, I just stood there. Heidi pushed me in. But the referee did say to me after he went, "I'm not going to book you because you've scored." And I remember saying thank you. But yeah, to be unfortunate for Danny, and fair play for me, he did take the hit.
Refs using common sense. Never hear that much, do you?
Nah.
Nah.
But you know what? Fair play to the referee. Like, I think he understood it. That was a massive goal for not just myself, but for the team. So to kind of book us when we've gone 2-0, I don't think it would have gone down well.
Oh, I don't think you'd be able to get too much into it, but what were the celebrations like after that game?
Oh, what did we do after the game? So obviously we got in the changing room. I remember, actually, it's funny. I got in the changing room. Everyone was going nuts. Obviously, we didn't have any champagne bottles. God knows why, but we could have done with some. But yeah, we got into the changing room, and I remember we just started throwing bottles around. Like, water was going everywhere. I checked my phone, and I think my phone was just glitching for a little bit because I just had so many Instagram requests, people commenting, and I don't know, I just put my phone down. We all got ready, and we ended up going, I think we went to Box Park, it's called, and we just went there for the whole night. Everyone came, and everyone had a right good night. Even the gaffer came out with the assistant, Abe's, they came, Flinty. Everyone coming, it was a good night. Obviously, we had people saying, "Oh, who do you play for?" Like Maldon. "Oh, you're that team that's just beat Leighton Orient." Yes, we are. Yeah, it was a good night. It was a really good night.
So I think after that, Jerome, obviously the buzz around the club was insane. We had the TV cameras back at Park Drive for the Newport game, and I think it gets forgotten sometimes in that cup run just how to the last whistle almost we pushed Newport, who at the time were doing really well in League Two. I think Steph got man the match that game, but I think he had some chances. You had some chances. How much is it sort of almost a surprising regret that night against Newport could have been so much different if things had gone slightly differently?
Yeah, it was. I think we knew how tough of a game it was going to be. Obviously, at our place, it's a little bit small. Well, it's a lot smaller than being at Orient. So the atmosphere is a little bit different. But to be fair to everyone in Maldon, look how many people turned up. It was a tough game, but if you look at it, we played so well, and if we're being very honest, we should have come away with a win. But you know how the game goes. And yeah, Steph played. He had probably one of the best games I've ever seen him play. He was on it that game. 3 chances myself, but it was one of those games where I feel like the league experience maybe took control a bit in that last minute of the game, those last few minutes, where they kind of maybe dug a bit deeper than we did. But you know what? I give credit to the boys because that sort of play that they did, it was very difficult for us to come up against. The long ball, always applying pressure. But yeah, it was one of those games where you look back at it and think, actually, on another day, we win that game, and we probably win it comfortably as well.
Yeah, I mean, I remember sort of being in the stand when their winger turned. I think it might have been Alamin when he just sort of got that yard of space and crossed it in. I remember Ed just sort of behind me going, "Oh no!" And as obviously as the ball came in, I think it was Hammond, wasn't it, that
No,
came?
it was Charlie. It was Charlie. Charlie was on the right, and he was 1v1 with the winger, and the winger he managed to get past him and cross it in. Yeah, it's just one of those unfortunate things. Like I said, on another day, literally all it takes was that 1% more, and we win that game.
Obviously, from that cup run, you had all the highs in that, but that season it kind of ended in a low because of what's now become known as COVID. It was kind of disappointing. I know that we spoke about on length here, and I know loads of people have, but we personally felt screwed out of the league title that year. How do you guys feel?
Probably just like everyone else, we feel like we understand why, but I think when you got to the point we got to, and all that work, especially after the season before we missed out in the playoffs, we just felt like everything had just been taken from us unfairly. And I think unfairly is probably the right word to use, because on another day, I guess they might have given that to someone. And it was just unfortunate. Like we'd had probably the best season anyone in that team was going to have, and I think it was the least we deserved. And for myself, I just feel like all that hard work, it was pointless. You know, we didn't get anything. We didn't get any sort of recognition, bar people knowing what we did, and no rewards, no trophy, and it was pretty upsetting. I'll be honest. It was very. I'd use the word devastating.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I remember.
Go on, Lee.
I was going to say, I just remember sort of when the news came through that they were going to void the whole season. It was just, yeah, like you say, and you guys had worked for, you know, probably the best part of 2 years as a team to achieve what you did, and it all just got ripped away for no real fair reason, to be honest.
Yeah, it was, and I think you look at just people we had in that team, and obviously the success that we did have and that we should have had leading up to probably winning the league. Look, I think it was 13 points clear maybe with games in hand. And you look at it and you think everyone in that team was probably going to go up. Everyone was probably going to make a big move or do something. And because of the time everyone stopped playing football with COVID, I mean, I think probably didn't kick a ball for 6 months. I think a lot of people, we didn't just get robbed of the league. I think people got robbed of moves that they deserved, opportunities that they deserved. And it is a big shame. It is a really big shame.
Yeah. So when football returned, I suppose, Jorome, I think you three front boys all sort of followed each other, if I remember rightly, to Willstone. That's a sort of a strange turn of events, but perhaps things didn't quite work out as they often don't in football. How you and the others planned out, but just how did that move come about? For the it just so happened to be that all three of you ended up at the same club.
Yeah. So I think who was the manager? Dean Brennan. I think my agent had kind of spoke to me before and saying he had been interested in me since October in 2019 or November 2019. So I think he'd already had interest. And obviously since lockdown and obviously during that whole season of the cup run, I had quite a lot of interest from league clubs. So in my head, the conversations I was having with my agent was, look, you've got League One team asking about you. They want you. Championship teams were talking. League Two teams were talking. But at that point, we was kind of like, we're going to skip League Two and go League One. And because of the situation of not playing football for 6 months, it's kind of like they started looking at now like, well, are we going to take a gamble on a young kid that's never had league experience? So this great opportunity that I had to go league football, what I had kind of worked for with everyone else, I still think about it now, and it kind of got ripped away from me. Like that was in football, you don't really get many chances, and that was my chance, and it was gone. So it kind of went from League Two was going to be easy to get into, it's now hard to get into. So that we're going to have to look at National League. And I remember my agent talking about it, and it's funny because I didn't realise they was in the National League. I thought they were still National South. So when I seen Danny and Charlie sign there, obviously I said to them too, oh, congratulations. And my agent was like, oh, look, he wants to sign you. So I said, all right, what's going on? I thought we was kind of looking a bit higher than this. And he's like, well, they are National League. It's still a good platform. I said, oh, really? And it was funny because I had no clue. So I spoke to Danny and Charlie prior to sign. I said, look, like, what's it like? What's he like? And it's like, yeah, it's good. You know, the boys are good. It's competitive. It's obviously a bit harder than Maldon's level, and it's still a really good platform. So I think I went down, I can't remember what day it was. I went down there, did my medical, and ended up signing. So I feel like maybe he looked at us three and thought, well, they've scored 100 goals between them. Why take one when you can take all three?
Did you ever play as a three together at Wellston in the same way you did under Brownie at Maldon?
No, that's the funny thing, not once. So as good as we were together, not once did we. And I will say, did we really get the chance to play together? No, we didn't. Danny probably played the most out of all of us. He done really well when he came on one time. I think we had Kings Lynn away, and he came on, and I think he ended up scoring a hat trick. So he got quite a few chances, and he done really well. But it was just one of those unfortunate things. We never got the chance to click there. Obviously, I didn't play too much. Charlie wasn't really playing too much. And obviously got to the point where Charlie went on loan. I kind of moved back to Sheffield because I felt a bit hard done by. But I think at Willstone, it probably wasn't. It was one of those football moves that just didn't work out for me. You know, I wasn't happy. I thought I deserved a bit more. And it was just kind of one of those things that you kind of had to accept and understand. It probably wasn't going to change the way I wanted it to, but I had to kind of go somewhere where I could play. So that's kind of how it panned out for myself.
And did you or Charlie or Danny ever sort of go to the manager and say, you've signed us as a three for a reason, why aren't you giving us a chance as a three here?
Not together, but I know I had a few conversations with him, like, you've brought me, literally. I remember he was, I don't want to say the word pestering to insult him, but he was speaking to my agent a lot whilst I was at Maldon, like asking, like, how do I get Jorome here? And then I just think you got me, and you never really gave me the chance. And I was looking at it thinking, you know, I had family up in Sheffield that I wasn't seeing. I was living down here on my own, and I was like, I didn't come for this. I came to play. You know, I made the risk to come down to London again to play for you because you showed interest that I've never had before. And I don't think I got that fair chance. So my agent had a few conversations, and, you know, like, you'll probably understand how football managers can be. It was always telling you what you want to hear. So the conversations never went how I wanted them to. And I think it got to January, maybe 2023, and I came home. That's how it panned out for me.
Yes. I think it's a real shame, Jerome, actually, that things sort of did pan out that way. But am I right in thinking to make it even weirder, I suppose, on your first start for Woolstone, if I'm right, you actually scored on your debut as well.
Yeah. So this is the sort of stuff I'm talking about. My first start, I can't remember who we played. We played one of the really good teams at that point as well. I think they were like top. I can't remember who it was. But yeah, my first chance, I headed it in, scored. Actually, we lost that game. We did lose. But even after that game, I didn't get a chance after. I was back on the bench. And I think of the striker, you look at it and think, yeah, you might have lost, but I played well. I scored. And then from then, I didn't get any more chances, and it just comes across as unfair and unreasonable, which is obviously why I kind of had a bad relationship with the manager after that.
Yeah.
You say you moved back up north after things didn't work out at Wellston. You ended up at AFC Fylde, and they sort of were a club with big ambitions, weren't they? I think they were looking to get into the Football League by 2022 or something like that. What was that like going there with a club that clearly kind of had a plan or a vision in place to progress on and off the field?
That, I would say, probably one of the most professional clubs I've been at. I think obviously I'd signed at Hampton and Richmond in the Conference South, and the same sort of thing happened. I think I'd scored 10 goals and I had 8 assists, but the managers didn't really like. Well, I know the reason why. I won't share it on here, but I know the reason why. The manager had spoken to me about a few things, and he stopped playing me. And I looked at it, and I was kind of like, right, I'm your top goal scorer, and I'm sat on the bench. And I just said, again, I got to a point where I was fed up. I said, I don't want to be here, I want to leave. So I went on loan to AFC Fylde. And actually, funny enough, I didn't know who they were. And it sounds so bad, but I did not know who they were. And I remember I Googled them, and I looked at the stadium, and I said to my agent, this is a Conference North team. And he said, yeah, I know. So we got that sorted, and I went up there, and you go into it, and it is literally like walking into a League 2, League 1 facility. You look at the stadium, you've got staff members in the reception, everyone's smart, everyone's polite, everyone's professional. You've got the whole ground which the stadium's built on, which the chairman owns, which is where you train, you eat there, your gym's there. And then bar that side of it, you've got the boys who are all kind of like ex-league players, established non-league players, and the competitiveness in that environment was probably one of the best I had ever come across. So there's players in there who have racked up hundreds of appearances, and the training, the intensity, the sharpness, the eagerness in training was a different level. And to be fair, that season they done really well. They had a few changes in managers, and it probably wasn't the best season for them because things were quite difficult. But that club in itself, the football team, the boys, the staff, everyone was kind of had the same goal to get promoted, get the club kind of back to where they deserve. Because I think they was quite unfair done by as well during lockdown. I think they kind of should have got promoted, but they did that thing where it was points by game, and it kept them down. So they felt hard done by, just like we did at Maldon. But yeah, again, a really good club, and they do deserve to be in the Football League.
So we're getting up to quite close to where you're at now with playing wise and that. But up until now, who would you say is the best player that you've played with, and maybe the best player that you played against?
The best player I've played with. Are we talking about in the last few years?
It could be any time, mate.
Oh, anytime. Okay. I'll be honest. Can I name a few people?
Yeah, go for it, mate.
Because I've played with some good players, and I've got to give more credit. So, Diego Di Girolamo, he's at Buxton now, but back in the day, he was on the books at Sheffield United. He was playing for Italy. If you ask many people that have played with Diego and against him, he's one of the most gifted footballers you will come across. I'll put David Brooks up there as well. Obviously, he's at Bournemouth now. He came from Man City when we were scholars. He was just a skinny kid, but technically unbelievable. He would just glide past players, so he's got to be up there. And I'd probably say Nick Horton as well. He's at AFC Fylde now. One of the best goal scorers and dribblers. I think again, many people will come across. Left foot, right foot, he can do it. And I'll probably say they probably are the best three players I can think of right now that I've played with and against. And in fact, I've been fortunate to play with all three of them. Yeah,
so obviously, Jorome, we've touched on your career really, right from the start all the way to sort of the summer of 2022. What does your football career look like now? Are you still playing? Things look a little bit quiet on social media. Are you still in the game, or are you out of the game? What does that look like for you now?
So, left Maldon, went to Wheelstone, AFC Fylde, went to Matlock, and there was just and then I went to Gainsborough, and there was just a repeated pattern when I was joining some of these clubs. And I don't think it was anything to do with the club. I just think I'd lost my love for football. I'd really stopped enjoying it since I left Maldon. And again, you're looking at it and you think that's 4 years of playing football, and I was unhappy. So I decided I was going to take some time out to focus on business side of life, family. I met my partner. Obviously, we combined our families together, and it was just football is a big commitment. And I remember saying to myself, I would never move away again because I had my daughter here. And I just didn't get the time to spend with her when she was probably in her toddler years that I wanted to. So I made the choice. And, I kind of looked at it and said, is football worth it at the moment? Is it making me happy? And you have to be realistic with yourself when it comes to your happiness and the things you want to do in life. And I had other aspects that I really wanted to look into, and I couldn't really do that whilst playing football. So I decided to just take some time out. I've not played competitively since September, and to be honest, I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying the time off. I speak to people a lot about accepting change in your life, not doing things just because you've always done it, but do the things that make you happy. And I've probably been the happiest I've been at this stage not playing football. I will not lie to you. Do I miss it every now and again? Sometimes, but am I going to come back to it? Maybe. I'm not sure yet. It's a big maybe.
So when Wayne comes back to Maldon, the first person he's got to ring is Jorome, right?
We can have a conversation. I don't know how that will plan with the missus saying I'm moving to Essex. I think everyone would have to move with me.
But bring her with you, mate.
I'll have to bring her with me, but I'll be very honest with you. And I've said it before. If there's one club that I would love to play for again, it would be Maldon.
We'd love to have you back, mate.
Honestly,
even as a fan, would love to have you back.
I do have an attachment to the club. It's just unfortunate it's so far away, but I think Maldon's one of those places where I feel like I could always come back to. I think even when I signed at Willstone, I think Maldon had a cup game, and I said, actually, you know what, I'm driving up. So I just came up to see a few people, and it was really nice. So yeah, Maldon, it's a possibility. I'll leave it at that. It's a possibility.
We'll take that. You say you've got sort of other aspects that you're looking to concentrate on now. You're not playing football so much. One of them from your social media looks to be sort of open water swimming and fitness shows and things like that. Just tell us about that, and that must give you more time to spend with your family and your children as well, I imagine.
Yes. Oh, you've been looking at my Instagram.
It looks knackering, mate, to be honest. It's not for me.
I think so. It's funny because my partner always kind of talks about how extreme I've been since I've left football. And I think it was kind of that thing of, you leave football, do you just stop and do nothing? And I remember saying to myself, I knew I was going to always be in the gym. I just never knew to what extent I'd take it. So then, I was just doing normal runs on the treadmill, keeping myself fit. And I remember I came across someone who mentioned CrossFit. I thought, I've never tried it. I've never been able to try it because of football. It's one of those, you can't do CrossFit whilst playing football because you're going to be too tired to do your football. So I said, yeah, fine, let me have a go. Obviously, I always thought, I've always known I was a fit person. In football sense, I've always been very fit. I did CrossFit. It made me feel like I'd just come off the back of a settee for a year. I kid you not, it's the hardest. If anyone that does CrossFit or anyone that's gone from one sport into CrossFit will tell you how tough CrossFit really is. And I don't think it gets the credit for how much dedication and how challenging it really is. And I think all the experience I've got moving away from home, moving away from family, it really toughened my mindset. And as I get older, I'm always learning more about mindset and challenging yourself, being open to putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. So for me, CrossFit was one of them. And then, of course, you see the open water swimming or the lake swimming. That was just another way of me challenging myself. How far can I really push myself? How far can I push my body? How far can I push my mind? And it's got to a point now where it sounds so cliche, but I'm finding comfort being uncomfortable. Like, I get in the lake and it's freezing cold, but I find that very comfortable now. I feel like it's developing me as a person, but I'm also learning more things about myself. So when that water's cold and it's kind of thrashing against your body, are you going to quit and get out, or are you going to just say, you know what, I'm staying in and concentrate on your breathing? And it's become something I've become very passionate about. I've set up a little WhatsApp group for people that want to come and join me in the lake. And I've been kind of put in a position where people have opened up to me about their own mental health challenges. Obviously, I've experienced it myself, and I feel like I've been put in a position now where I'm responsible for helping people. Like I've been there, I've done it. I kind of understand how to take control of my mind, and I'm doing these things that are so challenging. And now you see other people kind of looking at thinking, right, he can do it. Now I'm going to do it. So I think where I'm at right now is I'm kind of on a journey of doing what the hell I want, which is nice. But I think I'm on a journey of just being the best version of myself. Like I'm always trying to develop myself. Sometimes, if you ask my partner, I'm a very extreme person. But I'm really on a journey now of just developing myself as much as possible, always learning, always growing, and just kind of challenging myself to be the best person I can be, which is what you see on my Instagram. I'm always doing something.
That's great to hear, mate. It's really important. Obviously, you're staying on top of things. Mind, body, and soul is always important. And I think we've seen recently with certain people, it is hard once you leave football. What do you replace it with? And your mental health is a key thing. And we always say on our WhatsApp groups and that we're always open and ready to talk to people if they ever feel down, depressed. It's a massive thing, especially amongst men, and it's good to hear you doing that, mate.
Yeah, like you said, it's really important. You know, I mean, I think it was before I joined Maldon. I probably went through 2 years of really a lot of struggling and not really understanding what I was going through. I didn't understand. You know, it's that cliche of men not wanting to talk about their feelings. And I think I went through this whole thing of I didn't understand how I was feeling, but I knew I was feeling very down. I knew I wasn't happy. And I struggled a lot. And I think as I got older and as I became a bit more resilient to these things, I started to understand it more. So when I kind of opened up my story to other people and I started doing more challenges for myself and showing people, you know, I had one man, bless him, he came to me in the group and he opened up to the whole group, by the way, of strangers. And he spoke about his depression and kind of he nearly took his life 2 years ago and everything he went through. And he said he wanted to do this cold water challenge to take control of his mind again. And for me, that was very emotional. And I had my hats off to him. So like you said, I wanted to create a space where people could come and be open. They could come and challenge themselves, but they could also come and connect with a group that can help them do that.
Yeah. Just to obviously being able to open up about mental health issues is just an incredibly brave thing to do. I don't think there's any two ways about that. And there's a sense of vulnerability, especially among men, which is probably why we don't do it as much as we should. Can I ask, was it something that you sought advice and help for, or was it something that you kind of worked out for yourself?
So I'm gonna say unfortunately, I was that person where I didn't speak to anyone. I didn't speak to a soul. Not one person in my life knew how I was feeling because I don't feel like I hid it. I just kept it to myself. I didn't want to burden anyone else with it.
Yeah.
So I went through 2 years of what I know now because when I was going through it, I didn't realize how I felt. I didn't realize what it was that I was feeling. And I think I got maybe to 24 and I realized I was depressed. And it was to the point where, you know, I've never opened up publicly about this. I've spoke to a few family members and to my partner, but there was times where I had considered suicide and I'd written notes to my family, but I think the 2 reasons I never did it. It was one, I don't ever want my daughter to walk in and, you know, God forbid, I'd done the worst to myself. And there was also the football side of it. And I thought, in my head, football wasn't going well, but I knew it would get better. Just like anything in life, you keep going, it gets better. And that was the one thing I kept telling myself. So even throughout all the rejection I was getting, you know, I wasn't getting paid, I had no money, I was traveling up and down the country. I just kept telling myself it will get better. It never did. It didn't get better for 2 years. but eventually it did. But that was my story on that. I struggled for 2 years in silence. You know, I remember I told my mom, she said to me, I knew you was unhappy, but I never knew to that extent.
Mm.
And she always asked, like, how come you didn't speak? And I was like, you know, I think you may agree. I didn't know how to. I didn't know how to bring that up to people. I didn't know how to kind of address it. I didn't know how to articulate my feelings. And that's probably one of the biggest things I've been learning now of, if you are feeling a certain way, yes, sometimes you need to be stoic and just kind of get on with it. But you also have to understand you are human and you do have feelings and you do have to look after yourself. So I can say now, you know, I'm not depressed and I'm happy. I can understand my feelings and I can understand how my emotions work. So now I think I'm just at a point where I also want to help other people do that as well.
That's superb, mate. As you said, it is hard to open up and speak about these things. And when people do ask you how you're feeling, it is so easy to say, "Yeah, I'm fine," when you're really not. And sometimes you got to almost read between the lines with your friends and that, and always ask your friends how they're doing, even if they say they're all right. Just ask them again and just say, "Sure, are you really all right?"
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that we do well amongst our group, and it's great to see that you're doing that as well, and a big advocate for that as well.
No, that's definitely, it's really good that you're doing that. You know, I've been through a situation before where someone close to me was struggling, and I think just because we were lads at the time and we wasn't aware, we never really asked. Like, I think what we do now is we always, every now and again, we're like, how's everyone, how's Demanda? But back then we didn't, and this person was struggling and we just wasn't aware. And, you know, he went through something where we all had to gather around him and support him and show him that he was loved. So it is really important for, obviously, of course, everyone, but men especially. You know, you need to have that place where you can talk about it, even if it's with a stranger. Don't keep it in, because it never works out the way you think it will. It never just goes away until you actually deal with the problem.
Yeah, Jerome, I think it's amazing, to be honest, you know, how openly you've spoken. Just want to say a big thank you, really, for you being so open with us. I'm sure what you've said will resonate with a lot of our listeners as well. I suppose for me, and just as we sort of look to bring this to a close, what's the one bit of advice you could give to any sort of young football scholar that's either, you know, coming through the academy system, is perhaps experienced in the ins and outs of the game that you have in your career? What would be that sort of one bit of solid advice that you would give them to either to help them stick at it, or just realise that perhaps football isn't everything, as it sounds like you've discovered, and there is more to life than stepping out onto that pitch?
Yeah, of course. You know, I think every footballer goes through it when they're young. You know, I always thought football was the only thing I ever wanted to do up until maybe 19 years old. I think the one bit of advice that I could give is, football isn't everything, but if it's something that you want to do and you want it to work, you have to give it everything. And I don't just mean train hard. You need to dedicate your life to it, in terms of living the best life you can, doing every little thing. Like, there's so many small, minute things you can do in football to keep yourself just above the rest. Just keep yourself ticking over. Never slack. Don't be complacent, and just be. Again, it sounds cliche. Be the best. Be the best version of yourself. So if you know you should be sleeping, go to sleep. Instead of going out, read a book. It's literally those small things that make a big difference. And I think, I think being a young scholar, just be aware there's a lot of football knowledge that you haven't got yet. There's so much of football that you won't know yet, and just be open to it when it comes. Be very open.
And just one last question before we let you get on with your evening, Jerome. I just want to say thank you for winning me £60 with that goal against Newport. It was
Are we sharing that £60 50-50?
I tell you, I'll buy you a match ball.
Please do. I think how many am I owed? Maybe about 6.
I think it's probably put a 0 on that.
I'll make it 4 hat tricks, Jerome.
I'll take that.
Just to sort of bring it back to a more grounded note, thank you for sharing what is quite a vulnerable and a very personal story in terms of like mental health and things like that, because that's probably been the most important thing tonight. I think we've talked about, as nice as it is to talk about the good times in football. At the end of the day, football's not everything, and there is more out there, as you've touched on. Is there any advice you can give from, as I guess you've been on both sides of the argument now, so to speak, in terms of having mental health issues and depression, like you've touched on, and also being in a position now where you're helping people? Is there any advice you can give on how to notice signs and things like that, and what to do if someone close to us isn't feeling great about things?
So I think it does start with being honest with yourself. I think you do need, I think again, like you said, men kind of just shrug it off, but you need to be honest with yourself. Are you happy? And then I think once you realize maybe you're not happy, you have to understand that the change that you may want to happen, it starts from you. I can talk to you, anyone can talk to you, but the change has to come from you. And I think that's one thing I didn't understand. I always thought to myself, well, if football gets better, I'll be happy again. If I start maybe getting paid a bit more, I'll be happy again. But really, that wasn't the case. The case was how I felt inside as a person, and I had to change that. So I think my biggest advice was, first of all, be honest with yourself, and then maybe be honest with the fact that the change has to come from you and no one can do it for you. And then, maybe it doesn't have to be, you don't have to speak to 100 people. Just find one person that you can maybe open up to, that you know it will be private and they will give you the best bit of advice. Because again, like I said, they can't do it for you. They can talk to you, they can comfort you, but the work starts from within. And I think that's probably the best advice I can give. Take control of your life. I think I posted about it yesterday, actually. The meaning that you give to things affects the emotion that you put on that thing, which then affects your decision making. And that all starts within. It doesn't start from outside. It all starts from how you think. And that is probably my biggest advice. Control your thoughts, control your feelings. And then from that point, you control your decision making.
Can't think of a better place to end than that. Jorome, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Nice one. I appreciate you having me on. Anytime.
Thanks so much, Jorome. All the best, and
Cheers, Jorome,
make sure you
mate.
stay in touch.
Nice one. You, of course, always.
Look how far he's got already. Jorome Slew. He couldn't go all the way, could he? Oh, incredible!
That was goal-scoring legend Jorome Slew. I butchered his name there, so he fits in quite well with the other players at Maldon and Tiptree that get that on a weekly basis. But yeah, what a fantastic guy, and a really sort of powerful message about his struggles in and out of football as well.
Yeah, mate. To be honest, I don't think any of us are expecting that to turn out that way, but those open and frank conversations that we all need to have as men is important. And I know a few people that struggle with mental health. I've been there myself, and it's always good to open up and to hear someone like Jorome, who you think has had a decent career playing football, the lows that he's gone through, and to open up and to come out the other side really positively.
Yeah, I'd agree, Al. I think I'm someone like yourself, Al, and like Jorome, that's had his own mental health battles and sometimes still do. And I think a lot of what Jorome said actually resonated with me quite strongly. So yeah, and I think it takes a brave man to speak out so openly and so publicly. And it's so refreshing to hear Jorome, of a still relatively young man, is really in touch with all the good sides of life, and also he's doing a lot to help others, which he deserves a lot of recognition for. So yeah, so refreshing to hear, and yeah, really grateful that he gave up so much of his time to spend with us, and to hear Lee butcher his name twice and also butcher the announcement of Willstone, which I thought was quite entertaining. So you never let us down, Lee.
I've got to stay on brand, haven't I? So,
well, obviously this was a long episode, really, wasn't it? All about Jorome and his career. We'll hopefully release a pod sometime soon, talking everything recent Jammers. But enjoy this last little one, I'd say.
Yeah. And Go on, Lee.
I was going to say, in the meantime, we've got a game against Bowers on Saturday. That's at Park Drive. And then
Followed by 3B against Bury, right?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. That free beer might be enough to do me over, but we won't go there.
That was definitely 3B, Lee, not free beer.
Oh,
Oh dear.
I think we should end it there, lads.
It's been a long day. Yeah, there's another one coming on the 7th of January. And I believe we've got a guest lined up already for that, haven't we?
We have indeed. I need to prepare for that and actually prepare.
What a cracking pair of hands.
Oh, lovely pair of hands.
Perhaps we'll leave it there. Until the next one, fellas.
Until the next one, boys.
There'll be some fashion advice to come on that one as well, I imagine. So,
on that note,
can't wait.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Much love.
A place to stay.